Hey all, welcome to Fabricator's Report, a podcast that covers all things 40k, with a slight bias towards the Adeptus Mechanicus.
Yeah, today we'll be going over the 9th edition Adeptus Mechanicus Codex. We're going to be going over the entire Codex here today, so stick around. We're going to go over a lot. We're going to talk about a lot of different ideas with what you can do here. Very excited to bring it to you guys today. Yeah,
Will, do you want to start off?
Yeah, of course. So first off, we have an Adeptus Mechanicus attachment is one that includes only models with the Adeptus Mechanicus keyword, excluding models with the Agents of Imperium or unaligned keyword. And with this, you gain Dogmas, you gain Knight of the Cog, excluding auxiliary heavy support attachments, and your troops gain objective secure. Yeah, I think the troops in this new codex are definitely really good, and the ability for them to get obsect is really quite good. Having, especially with the troops we're going to talk about later, having things like Skitarii and Cataphrons be obsect is really quite useful. Are we the only faction with biker obsect other than Custodes right now?
No, Deathwatch can get bikers in their
Right.
Proteus and also Indomitor kill teams. I don't know which one the kill team with the intercessors are, but anyways, yeah, I mean, absolutely, ninth edition is to say the very least, it's a objective focused edition. Sit on places, score points. Who cares if you
Yeah.
die turn 4 or 5, right?
And
That's what Harlequins and Jakari are built to do. But
right.
they score a
I
lot of
think
points.
I think with Admech, it's a little bit of a different situation than those two armies, but I think we can talk more about that as we get into Skitarii. But with how many obsec bodies we can put on points, that's going to be something that's going to be really valuable going into the meta, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, pre-Codex, Adeptus Mechanicus was a very low-scoring army. You kind of just blasted your opponent off the board and then scored later turns. But now you have this really strong early board presence with infiltrators and pre-game moves, Skitaris, etc., along with your infantry being, quite durable for their points costs. And it's really useful just having all these relatively durable obsec. In fact, I've played Admech a lot of these super objective holdy missions these days, and it's such as the scouring, and I've found that Admech actually really enjoys playing these missions now, which is really interesting. Anyways.
Yeah. I kind of disagree on the point that Admech was a late scoring army. A lot of the Admech builds I was playing were taking advantage of Engage, especially in the early turns, and then Scramblers a lot. So, but definitely very low scoring primaries.
Oh yeah, when I meant low scoring, as in I meant low scoring primaries. You don't Old Admech didn't really sit on points that well.
Oh yeah, for sure. All right, Justin, what do you think about Knight of the Cog in this codex? For the
Okay,
Knight player.
so as a start, I own around 6,000 points of knights. And honestly, I don't think it's that useful, to be honest. For each detachment in your army with this ability, you can select one Questor Mechanicus, super heavy auxiliary detachment in your army. Models in that detachment gain the Knight of the Cog keyword. So we'll go into that later. But it's a cool addition to add knights in. But currently, as it stands, I don't think Admech really needs to add knights in. And I believe they do break Doctrinas and Canicles unless you're Metallica and their House Raven, and you spend one further CP for Knight of the Iron Cog. I'm not completely sure, so Will, correct me if I'm
Yeah,
wrong.
I was actually something that I keep looking back and forth on this with is maybe running a detachment of Warglaves with Admech. Getting the reroll Meltas is really quite nice. The 3d6 charge is quite nice, but it never felt like there was a strong enough reason to take them over chickens. It's nice skew, but unless you're running a really, really skew heavy list, I keep looking at it, I keep going, it's just okay.
Yeah, because you're really putting your eggs in one basket there, right? With a knight, it's like this massive, 400 point model, 400 plus point model. And to be honest, at the same price and perhaps even cheaper, you get more output in chickens who have more wounds in terms of like ablative wounds. You have, a lot more like support. You spend a lot less CP for that. And honestly, just chickens are just like a lot nicer than the knight. But obviously, the knight is a lot more durable, so there is a benefit. It's a trade off.
Yeah, that's kind of how I feel about it too. And unless I was running a SKU list, I probably wouldn't touch Knight of the Cog, but it's an option that's there, and I think there could be lists in the future that make use of it, but not at the moment, the current meta.
Yeah, I think it's a really nice option to have there. Obviously, if you're playing casual and you just like knights, which is me like half the time, obviously that's a great rule, right? Because you only have what like 1,200 points of Admech in real life, and you have like a lot of knights, so just soup in a few knights.
Yeah, something that you fun you could do is you could like Super Crusaders or like Gallants or something and just have fun just with the 3d6 charge. I could see that being pretty enjoyable for casual games.
Hmm.
Yeah, anyways,
Anyways,
do we want to
moving
move
on to
on to the
forge
Forge Worlds
rules.
now? Yeah, oh,
Okay.
you read my mind.
Yep.
Alright, so, Forge Worlds. Each Forge World has a Warlord Trait, a Stratagem, and an Arcanum Mechanicum, which is our Relics. So let's start off with Mars. What do you think about the
Yep.
Dogma?
So I mean, Mars is pretty much the quintessential, um, Forge world. It's where the Adeptus Mechanicus is ruled from. It's the ruling Forge world in the lore, and to represent their dogmatic purity and their fervor of their you know faith in the Omnissiah. They have this really cool dogma, which Skitarii units gain canticles of the Omnissiah. First of all, it's called Master of the Forge. Forgot to talk about that. But first of all, yeah, Skitarii units gain the canticles of the Omnissiah ability. So that's really interesting because that makes your Skitarii pick really, really flexible. So for one turn, you can have them really durable with Shroud Psalm. The other turn, you can have them really, pump up their damage output with Benediction to Omnissiah. You have the -1 to hit Canonical and melee, etc. And it's really, really useful. Anyways, their Warlord trait is Panegyric Procession. Panegyric? I don't know. You probably know how to.
Yeah,
You probably
going
know how
back
to.
to the
Yeah.
Dogma for a second here, something I really enjoy about this Dogma is it's a lot of fun to use in games, at least playing Mars, right? Because it gives you so much flexibility
Mhm.
to pick your game plan for the turn in a way that a lot of armies can't. Like most armies engage with a very linear set of game plans. Admech, because of its Doctrina system and its canonical system, allows you to break those rules a little bit. And I think that's one of the pretty
Mhm.
good appeals of the
Absolutely.
army. Yeah.
I was getting a bit too ahead of myself there, but anyways, there's actually a second part to the dogma. So every
Yeah.
time you get to shoot or fight with a unit, you get one Master Artisan's type reroll, but this time to hit. So you can reroll one hit roll. This is pretty much like similar to one half of the Black Heart ability in Drukhari. Now that's really useful in your MSU units, especially like Cataphron Breachers with torsion cannons. You're shooting 3 shots, hitting on 4s, but you have that one free reroll, so you can reroll that 2 or 3 to hit, and then you have your Dominus or like whatever for reroll ones. Actually, the Dominus doesn't give them reroll ones anymore, right? He
Yeah,
because they're not
you
core
not to
Cataphrons.
Cataphrons because they're not core. That would be correct.
Yeah, that's unfortunate. I don't run Cataphrons, so that's why I don't know. But anyways, it
Yeah.
really helps with their reliability. And like Mars shooting is just one notch ahead of pretty much all Admech shooting, which is really cool, as they should be. It's very devastating shooting phase.
Yeah, for
But as
sure.
Will said, you can really pick and choose your game plan. And one thing that I did find out with that is that against a good opponent, like sure you can like address the game tempo with that, but it can really be played around too, especially if you're going first. So for example, you try to line up this massive alpha strike onto your opponent or like it's like this turn I'm going to be super durable. I'm going to have like the plus one save doctrine on my on all my Scutari, and I'll be in Shroud Song. And your opponent can just be like, okay, cool. I'm gonna pick no doctrine of this turn, or I'm gonna pick the movement doctrine of this turn, and I can just hide behind ruins and choose not to shoot you. And you've wasted your one turn of hyper durability, and now you can't do anything else. And you've also given yourself -3 movement throughout the
Yeah,
board,
it's very
at least for
true.
your Skitari. So
I
it can
can
definitely be played around, but you can really decide the game's tempo with it if you're good. But obviously, if your opponent is also good, it's yeah,
Yeah,
it's this
yeah,
trade
that's
off.
something I really quite like about Mars. It's very skill expressive, and I also think it's very good. But we'll talk a little bit more about the Forge World viabilities after we talk towards the end of the Forge Worlds. But yeah, Mars is
Absolutely.
definitely a very good pick in both casual and competitive play, simply because it's a very fun Forge World to mess around on. There's a low skill floor with a high skill ceiling. There's just a lot you can do with it, and it's pretty fun. Let's move on to the
You want
Warlord
to go
trait.
into the Warlord trait, the relics and strat?
Yeah, yeah, let's talk about the Warlord trait a bit. So, once during command phase, you can select the Warlord and another unit and within 6 inches, and that gains an additional canticle that you have selected from your canticle chart. Um, I gotta say, I'm not the
It's not
biggest
an
fan.
additional one, I believe. It's because the last clause, that unit benefit from the selected canonical instead of the one that is active for your army. So
Oh,
it's
right,
really
right, right.
meh, to be honest.
It's if
Yeah.
it gave, even if it was a
Canonicals
bonus.
are, yeah, I mean, canonicals are kind of, like they're okay, but you have to select a Mars Cult Mechanicus core unit, and it's like
Yeah,
there's like 1.5 Cult Mechanicus core units in the game.
yeah, it's
Like a lot of
literally
the book is
just
built, yeah, a
it's
lot of
just
the book is
yeah.
built around Cult Mechanicus core, but that's literally just Electro Priests and like sometimes Castellan robots, and they're not really efficient, as I'll go into later. And like I feel like they wrote the book while Cataphron breachers, Cataphrons in general were still Cult Mechanicus core, and then they just removed core from that data sheet
Yeah,
entirely.
something that feels really weird about this is none of the canicals really, really benefit the units that you can give a different canical to. Like, you can't give this a Cataphron, so you can't get this. You can't use another turn of like Cataphron torsion shooting. You can't really put this on Fulgrites because you probably only need one turn of the 3d6 charge. It's overall just it's very strangely designed. It might be fun if you're running around with like Castellan robots, but definitely more of a casual play pick in my opinion. I think you skip on this from most competitive lists, at least at the moment.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And onto the relic. It's a melee relic. We have a lot of those in our codex. For some reason, we're a shooty faction. We get so many melee relics, and I mean,
Yeah,
at
that was the
least it was a
thing.
step up from before. But I don't think there's any that's really worth taking.
I
Um,
think if you're going to build a Crusade Admech army, the Red Axe is fantastic. This is a very fun pick. For competitive play, I think you skip it pretty much every time. I think if you're getting a Tech Priest to melee, something's probably gone wrong. Especially the Tech Priest Dominus that you're probably equipping this with isn't that good of a Smash character, so it's fun, but it's not great. Yeah. Let's talk
yeah.
about Wrath
So
of Mars.
if you guys know what it is, it's strength +2, AP 5, damage 2. Um, each time you fight, you get 3 additional attacks. Axe, Omniscient Axe for Attack Priest Dominus. So when yeah, I think it's just Attack Priest Dominus. You
Yeah, no,
might be
I
able
think
to
I
put it
think
on
it
the
is
C
just
tier
the Tech Priest
because I
Dominus
think
because
the Manipulus has the
Manipulus has staff.
Omniscient. Yeah, he has a staff, which is like another really weird weapon. But anyways, I don't think it's that good to be honest, because you're not gonna get as you said, you're not gonna get them into combat.
I mean, if you could give like a Tech Priest Dominus like 5 attack space, there would be something you could do with this, just like make a super crazy killy like Dominus, but we don't have the options for that currently. So right now, this is
Yeah, I don't
definitely a
think we have the
skip.
warlord traits for smashing either. We have warlord traits for durability and yeah, but like
Yeah,
honestly,
it's
not for
just not great
smashing.
overall. Yeah.
Hmm.
All right, let's
And the
let's let's talk
strat. This
about
is the fun part.
The strat, Wrath of Mars is certainly something. For those of you who don't know, what Wrath of Mars is in the shooting phase, you select one Mars unit. Until the end of the phase, an unmodified wound roll 6 deals an immortal wound to a maximum of 6 mortal wounds. Currently, the raw wording does imply that it is per model. However, the intent seems to be
I think that's just
6
bad
models.
reading, to be honest.
That's entirely
Well,
possible.
yeah, I think it's very intended that it's capped to 6 per unit, not
Yeah,
model, and it's written that way. But people are bad at reading.
to be
But
fair, most
anyways,
tournaments are running
yeah.
it at max of 6, so the intent seems to be pretty clear what it's supposed to be.
Oh
And to
yeah,
clarify,
absolutely. It's
it
really
is
potent.
yeah, it's one CP for power rating 11 or more. Sorry, it's if it's more than 11, it's 2 CP, and if it's less, then it's 1. Which makes this really
Yeah.
good because it's super CP efficient now. Whereas before, at 2 CP, sometimes it would drain your CP really quickly. Like you're popping this potentially every turn. You're running out of CP. Now that it can be 1 CP, and you're probably going to get the 6 every time off that 1 CP. It's a really good damage boost, especially against armies like
It's
Custodes.
pretty much once per turn you get to target a unit. They take 6 mortal wounds, and that's really potent because I don't think there are a lot of armies in the game that really like taking mortal wounds. um, just go through your save, no matter how good your save is, your invulnerable save, etc. It's like, you're shooting at Dark Angel Terminators, and like against like if you're playing like Dark Angels, versus like some other army like Space Marines or like Tyranids, their shooting phase they might kill like max 1-2 Terminators, right? You're confirmed killing 2 with mortal wounds, and then you have like 2 billion shots that's also going through.
Yeah, it's really
One
great.
cool trick you can do with that, especially pre-Codex, I love doing this, was Cerberus Raiders with Wrath of Mars. When you get them within rerolls or exploding sixes or whatnot, you can pop +2 to hit. You might be in like reroll 1 canonical, and then you can just do this along with Wrath of Mars. So each mortal wound is 2 mortal wounds,
Mhm.
and it's quite potent to say the very least.
Yeah, it's not bad for offing characters. I think the viability of Raiders, even in Mars, is still in question, but it's definitely something that you have a tool for. In certain metas, it could definitely come up and be extremely useful.
I think Raiders, they might not be the most efficient choice, but I do think that they're quite a viable choice in the
Yeah,
Admech Codex.
yeah. The thing is, and also something that's really great about this is, for example, in the Deathwing Terminator case, this is killing like 60 points of like Terminators, which is just utterly fantastic. Um,
Hmm.
like if
Absolutely.
you're looking at like 8 to 10 point troops, you're killing around like 50 points to 60 points of units for 1 CP. It's overall just really useful. If you just need to finish off a
Yeah.
unit, it's great. All
Hmm.
right,
Hmm. So good. It just doesn't care about your save, doesn't care about your toughness. It's like, who cares? Mortal wounds.
all right. Let's talk about the boogeyman of the Codex, Lucius. Let's start with the dogma. So each time an attack with damage characteristic of 1 is allocated to a model of this dogma, add 1 to the armor saving throw made against that attack. The second part of the dogma is you add 3 inches to the range of ranged weapons that model with this dogma are equipped with. Um,
Hmm.
I think
So
it's
starting off the
pretty.
bat,
Yeah,
wow,
yeah. The
just
dogma
amazing.
is already very good. You're looking at even units like Wyverns, who will get full blast on a 20-man Scutari squad, really hate to see Lucius. You're basically, and most armies don't have good horde clearing that's damage 2. Like you're not seeing a lot of autocannons in the meta, you're not seeing like a lot of damage 2 weapons. The Solar Blessing is just good almost in every single matchup. It's fantastic. Fantastic choice. And the
Also,
Bullstream,
sterilizers with 15-inch range. It's like, who cares about the Auspic scan? You're truly uninteractable right now.
yeah, it's nuts. And the 3 inch range isn't
Yeah,
even bad. It lets you get your Ranger rapid fire easier. It lets you advance and shoot with Vanguard easier. It just lets you get away with a lot of stuff that you probably shouldn't be allowed to get away with. Overall, it's just a
absolutely.
fantastic dogma. Um,
And things like things like the earlier part of the dogma, +1 save against damage one. Pretty much 80% of the of like just guns in the game or like weapons in the game are damage one, and it's just so potent. You're basically, if you think about it, it's pretty much this +1 save to 80% of damage
Yeah,
in the game.
yeah.
It's so
You're
ridiculously
basically
powerful.
yeah, you're getting like what, like 5 points of value. A Sister of Battle is 13 points, right? So you're basically making your Skitarii a Sister of Battle in like most situations. So it's
Along with
just
having
utterly
better
fantastic.
guns
Yeah,
and
it's
doctrinas and rerolls.
it's
Yeah.
absolutely fantastic.
And about the
Definitely.
range thing too. For example, when you're shooting into like a Volkite Contemptor, like behind a ruin, right? Um, like if you can get like a range onto the Volkite Contemptor, you're like outranging them by like I don't know, like 8, right? And that's like their movement. And then like honestly, like if you can get that angle and they need to move out of that ruin to get you, they move to they can't like move in a straight line. Like if they're hiding behind like a ruin, right?
Mhm.
They don't move in a straight line to like get line of sight to you. So like sometimes you like with your 51-inch range, like they don't clear the building within 2 inches, and they just don't get to shoot you because of range, because 45 versus 51.
Right.
Really niche case, but like things like that happens, and it allows you to dictate the terms, like the pace of the game, and where you get to like engage your enemy whenever you want, because you're pretty much always going to outrange your enemy.
Yeah, something that's also pretty nice is in the Exocrine in the Tyranid matchup is something you can do is having 51-inch range Iron Striders. Their Exocrines only move 6, so at max they're getting 42-inch strike range, and it's very interesting how you can take advantage of that. I guess they can advance now, but at max it's 48. So you can definitely try to outspace them, outpace them, outrange them. And sure, we
I
are on
think
ninth
they
edition
still have an
boards.
FAQ saying that they can't
Do
um
they? I
advantage
thought they
it.
got
Yeah, yeah,
changed
yeah.
to Mako FAQ. Well, point
I
is,
don't know.
it definitely, and even though ninth edition boards tend to be a lot more terrain heavy, I still find this being useful in almost all of my games. Um,
Mhm.
I've never had gone into a game in Admech with Admech, either casual or competitive, where this didn't like come up. It's absolutely fantastic. It's especially in the context of this army. I think in other armies this wouldn't be that good, but in the current like build of the army, I think this is it's kind of crazy. But yeah,
Absolutely.
and
Also, the Warlord trait, going on to that now. Oh
yeah,
my god, that is amazing. So, in your command phase, select one Lucius core unit with a 9 of this Warlord. A lot of the Admech, pick and choose Warlord traits, etc. buffs are 9 inches, which is really cool. Like the Manipulous Galvanic Field, the Warlord traits, and a lot of them are like start of movement phase or like start of fight phase too. So like it really grants you that like flexibility. We'll go into that later, but giving a unit, any Lucius core unit, so can be not Cataphrons, Castellans, if they're in the Datasmith range, if they're Skitari, Infiltrators, name it, they get Transhuman. It's just Transhuman is
yeah,
just
it's
such a
utterly
good,
just
um,
fantastic.
yeah,
um,
absolutely.
yeah, all right. It's definitely really good because in this codex you have a lot of very low toughness units, like the Skitari and
Mhm.
Infiltrators Justin mentioned are only T3. So this does come up quite a lot. It's just well, it's just fantastic. It's a very strong
Yeah,
ability,
when
and
your
it
opponent's shooting, yeah, when your opponent's shooting you with strength 6, they're wounding on
yeah,
4s instead of 2s now. So strong.
yeah, and with the dogma, you just become absurdly tanky against a wide variety of weapons.
Hmm.
Strength 6 guns at damage 1 are just gonna have a really hard time into you. It's heavy bolters are gonna
Yep.
struggle. It's actually I don't think heavy
You
bolters actually get
see all those Ministorum heavy flamers that the sisters have. Yeah,
yeah,
and you don't really care about that. You're saving them on 3s, and if you're in cover, you're saving them on like 2s.
yeah, absolutely incredible ability. It's great. Let's talk about the solar flare. This is quite the relic. So it's a Lucius model only. Once per battle in the movement phase, the bearer can use this relic. If it does so, the bearer's unit, and one friendly Lucius core unit within 3 inches of the bearer can be removed from the battlefield and set up anywhere on the battlefield more than 9 inches away from the enemy models. If 2 units are set back up on the battlefield using this relic, both units must be placed wholly within 6 inches of each other. This relic is insane. It's Veil of Darkness on an army with even better shooting than Necrons and with an even better Alpha Strike. Or you can use
Hmm.
this to deep
Absolutely.
strike out of melee. It has a ton of utility. It's
It has a
absolutely
lot of
fantastic.
applications. So, for example, when you're tagged by Fiends of Slanesh or like Morvane's Agonizer, you like just can't fall back, right? Well, you could just flare out of there. I think it's really useful in those like matchups. In
Mhm.
the matchups where you're getting your opponent on a really strong Alpha Strike turn one, like you're present like I think that's just a winning matchup anyways. Like, to be
Yeah,
honest,
it's
like if your flare is devastating your opponent, there's probably something like pretty wrong. Like if you like the flare is just a small component of how the army works, but like if you're getting your opponent there, like quote unquote get
yeah,
um
especially on low terrain board.
terrains, yeah.
Like you're just gonna solar flare and you're gonna shoot something behind a ruin and you're gonna absolutely just annihilate it with how the current like codex works. It's very powerful, it's very potent, and you're teleporting extremely killy units with good points cost, and you can make them durable before
Yep.
they teleport. It's pretty crazy.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
You teleport up like a transhuman, always counted being cover, blah blah blah, like whatchamacallit, Skatara Ranger Squad. And you don't even need to drop them 9 inches away from your enemy. You can be 19.5 because that's your rapid fire range with Lucius and the galvanic field. And boom.
Yeah.
It's like, yeah, so even if you screen me, I don't think you're screening 19.5-inch bubbles anywhere. I'm getting to shoot at your stuff. So good.
Yeah, it's and I think in the context of this codex compared to Necrons, I think a lot of Necron players or people who are familiar with the Veil of Darkness are generally like, "Oh, it's not that good," right? Because like you can screen it out, there's a lot you can do against it. But in this case, Solar Flare is quite a bit better, because Admech ranges tend to be very long, and point for point, Admech units tend to be more killy, especially Lucius core units like Skitarii. It's just utterly fantastic. It's probably I don't want to. I'm probably. I feel safe calling it the best relic in the Codex at the moment.
Mm,
It's quite
I feel like that's a hot take. I have a relic that I really like, but I probably agree with you.
good. Yeah, it's really good. Um, Now let's talk about the stratagem. Legio Teleportorum. Basically, it's a 1 CP. You can deep strike a Lucius unit, excluding a vehicle. It's just a normal deep strike, 1 CP. Um, it's
So
okay.
good.
I think it's okay.
Yeah,
I
I mean, like, I really like the utility of Deep Strike. There are some matchups where, like, I don't want to get my chickens shot. I don't think they'll shoot turn one. I'm like, cool. I can't fit that much stuff in my deployment zone, especially when I'm running 80 Skatari and like 7 Iron Striders and like more stuff alongside that. I'm like, okay, cool. I might need to deep strike this one squad of chickens. Especially sometimes my while we stand squad. It's just like, so the 3-man squad, just because there's not enough footprints, like, well, just not enough space in my deployment zone to hide behind ruins, and I don't want to get shot.
That would be very true, except it says excluding vehicle units.
Oh
It's
shit.
a tad
Oh crap.
awkward.
Okay, I've been using that wrong then. It's fine. I've like only deep striked chickens once, I think. Yeah.
Yeah, I think.
Most times it's just a Vanguard squad, just because I don't want to have a Vanguard squad. Okay, I
Yeah,
read that wrong. I'm gonna tell my opponents to apologize to them.
yeah.
Y'all
Something.
know who
Something
you
else.
are.
I think the best thing you can definitely do with this is probably deep striking Fulgrites or Corpuscari. Getting the 3d6 charge off with Legio Teleportera is just really strong. It lets you apply pressure on the board. As much as I don't like deep striking, I think that is something that's a legitimate strength of Lucius. It's another
Hmm.
option in your toolbox, and you're probably already taking Fulgrites anyways. So if you really want to, you can just deep strike the Fulgrites instead and run the Dune Rider empty. If you feel like you're not going to be able to get a Dune Rider up the board, and that can be really
Hmm.
potent. That, or if you're on scouring and you can't fill up your deployment zone, you throw a blob of 20 Vanguard inside of a teleportarum, and then you just send them out when you can.
Depending on the matchup, I think like maybe 75% of the time I throw a squad of 20 Vanguard and Legio Teleportarium, just
I
because I have 40 Rangers on the table. So I front line two squads of Ranger, like one squad of Ranger and one squad of Vanguard. And I have the backline unit, like usually with Firepoint telemetry, and they throw out the buffs. Every unit has data tether. Um, and if I need to, I can flare them. Well, it really depends on who I want to flare. But I keep them backline, because backline's usually where you can hide things. Well, like hide things, and it's not usually like a good position because you're trading being hidden for like board position. But with the flare, you don't really care. Um, and then like especially as Bill said, on a smaller deployment, I've played so many scouring. It's been really weird. I played so many scouring games, but you don't want to get your 20 Vanguard to be shot at. I'd rather deep strike them, drop them like 20, 21-inch range away from my opponents, rather than get them shot
Right.
at. Like let them get shot at. Yeah.
Yeah, I think I definitely play Admech in a more foot-based sort of style. So Legio Teleportarum is a little contradictory to how I generally play Admech. I do think I think I actually am the reverse with Legio Teleportarum. I'm probably using it like 25% of the time. But when it comes up, it's so important. Like, if I can't fit in my deployment zone on scouring, this saves my life. This is great.
Oh
Um
yeah, I also just like having a deep strike unit to put pressure on my opponent. It's
yeah,
very flexible.
yeah,
Yeah.
while I do appreciate the pressure, I do prefer also sometimes if I go second having the firepower. Um
Hmm.
but then again, this army is very shooty, so sometimes you don't need that extra firepower. It just kind of depends on the situation and what kind of a read you're able to make. I think in an 80 Scutari list, you definitely want to use it. In 60, you might not.
Yeah, I don't know what you're running right now, but we'll go on to this next episode. But the
Yeah.
list Mark and I have been running is 80s Qatari, so a lot of the time we do end up running a squad of Vanguard or Rangers
Mhm.
in Legio Teleportarium.
Yeah, no, that makes sense.
I mean, like
Anyway,
Final Verdict. This is pretty much the best Forge World um in the Codex, probably in my opinion.
yeah, it's incredibly strong. I can't say I recommend it too much for casual play, but for competitive play, this is very much a go-to. Yeah.
Yeah,
All right. Let's talk about
Agrippina.
Agrippina. Or Agrippina. I never know how to quite pronounce it.
Same for me. I
Agrippina.
do. Yeah, I don't know. Agrippina. I don't.
Agrippina.
I don't know.
Agrippina. I've heard that it's supposed to be Agrippina. It's supposed to be like Roman, but I'm not
I mean,
100%.
I do study Latin and Greek, so but I'm not sure. I'm not sure because this is also like spelt weird.
Yeah, it's very odd. But enough
It's
about the
like
name.
Metallica thing.
Yeah, it's so strange. Admech names, am I right? But yeah, Agrippina is probably the Forge World that got the biggest glow up out of all of them. They went
Absolutely.
from just about unusable to actually like a kind of reasonable take, and that was
Mhm.
definitely it was a big improvement over what they used to be. So let's
I
let's start off.
really like Agrippina.
I think it's definitely a great casual Forge World. I think it could even see competitive play. I'm just not sure exactly what you would be running, but it's good. It's good. Let's start off with the
Hmm.
dogma. So if you're within half range with a range attack, you improve your AP by one. And your second part of your dogma is when you get charged, you can either hold steady or set to defend if you're not already within engagement range of an enemy unit. Um, yeah, so that's going to be +1 save or +1 attack. It's pretty. Wait, is it Overwatch on fives? It's Overwatch on fives or +1 attack. Yeah. Overall, pretty good dogma. I mean, you're really taking this for the AP one, right? The AP one is definitely what you're taking with this. I think with this Forge World in general. Do you kind of agree with that sentiment, Justin?
The second part's just a cherry on top.
Yeah, that's definitely how I'm feeling about it as well. I mean, getting AP2 galvanic rifles, AP1 radium is great. Getting extra AP on your auto chickens makes them really consistent in AP2, strength 7, damage 2. Just fantastic, especially with 6 shots with the auto chickens. Yeah, overall, it's just a fairly solid dogma. Do you want to get into the warlord trait, Justin?
Sure. Warlord trait called Verse of Vengeance. Select a friendly in your command phase. Select one friendly Agrippina core unit within 6 of the Warlord. Each time a model in that unit is destroyed by an attack, roll 1d6. On a 4, do not remove the destroyed model from play. It can, after the attacking model's unit has finished making its attack, either shoot with one of its range weapons as if it were your shooting phase, or make one attack with one of its melee weapons as if it were the fight phase. After resolving these attacks, the destroyed model is then removed. So it's not like super good. I think this is what the Agrippina like old dogma used to be. I'm not sure. I
I
don't.
believe
I
is
didn't play
you, it
them.
was you stood back up on sixes. This
Okay.
is
I thought that was Graya. Anyways.
it might have been Graya. It was either shoot or that was Graya. It's one of the two. But I
Mhm.
think this one is a situational pick. Like running up a blob of 20 Vanguard with this, 10 of them shoot, that's 30 attacks. That's pretty reasonable like firepower. It's just it's situational and it has a lot of counterplay. And for example, if you're running up these 20 Vanguard and you get like charged and you get attacked in melee, you can't shoot into melee, so you would be making melee attacks. And making sure you're making 10 melee attacks, but they're on Vanguard, which is strength 3, damage 0, AP 0, damage 1, which isn't really going to punch through anything reasonable, especially on a 4 plus weapon skill. I think
Mhm.
you could put this on something like Infiltrators and be pretty all right, but it's kind of questionable feeling to me,
I think
especially
it's
because it's one
meh.
attack. If it
Yeah.
was, if you could make all of your attacks, I think you could like reasonably see it being used. Or if it was on a 3 up or maybe even a 2 up, I think you would run this quite a bit more. But at the current time, it's not great.
Hmm. You want to go into the relic?
Yeah, the Eye of Z Lexum. Alright, Grippendom model only. At the start of your shooting phase, select one enemy vehicle model within 18 inches of the bearer. Till the end of the phase, bearer gains the following ability. You're getting a 6-inch aura, and every time a unit within 6 inches, that is a Grippina core or a Cataphron servitor, you reroll the wound roll against the targeted vehicle by the Eye of Lexum. Um, I think Eye of Z Lexum is so close to being great. The 18 inches is what hurts this relic the most to me. Because
I think I agree. 18-inch range is pretty meh, and I feel like Admech, like my personal take on Admech, is that I feel like our output's already good enough that I don't think we really need to buff our output. But it's really nice in a pinch, especially if you're playing against knights or another army that brings a really tanky vehicle that you
yeah,
need to
if
remove
knights were to come
immediately.
back in the meta, or you started seeing like melee demon engines being run, I think this would be something you bring. But currently, it's just kind of strange, in my opinion. I think
I think the problem is like, why are you letting vehicles come within 18 inches of you?
Yeah, like there are very few situations, even against things like decimators, where tech priests will be within 18 of a vehicle. So it's just very questionable to me, especially when Daedalosus is what, a 24-inch range aura selection. I could be wrong on that, but
I think he is. Yeah.
yeah, like I don't quite understand why you would ever run this over a Daedalosus. It just doesn't. It doesn't seem very cohesive with the rest of
Daedalosus is
the.
+1 to hit, not reroll wound rolls.
That is true, but he's a lot easier to use, and you're not using a relic slot, so
That's true.
it feels very strange to me. All right.
Hmm.
Anyways, that's our thoughts on Ives Lexum. Well, you want to talk about Endangered Machines a bit, Justin?
Sure. So basically, it's a one CP strat. You can use this twice in a Strike Force battle or 3 times in an onslaught. Otherwise, it's once per game. Select one before use the stratagem before the battle. Select one Agrippina Cataphron Servitors army unit from your army and add one to the toughness characteristic. And you have toughness 6 Cataphrons. They're your basic troops. You get a lot of them. So nice to have. Toughness 6 is just such a really it's just an amazing break point, especially on your objective holders. Your opponent's supposed to shoot at them because they're obsec. They're durable. Breachers on a 2-up save, and with Shroud Psalm, you can get them to a 1-up. So
All
amazing.
right. You want to hear my hot take about indentured machines,
Hmm.
Justin?
Sure,
I
sure.
think I think it's pretty bad. And this being because the dogma and indentured machines kind of contradict each other. All of the Cataphron weapons are at least AP2. Um and going up from strength 5 to strength 6, while nice in certain matchups, only really matters if you're worried about things like heavy bolters or the new Mistborn
It's
flavorings.
yeah. I think it's actually
So
getting a lot more relevant. There's a lot
it
of toughness
is.
6 running, strength 6 running around now.
That is true, but the issue I'm having with it is it contradicts with the dogma. Like, my dogma is telling me I probably want to run Skitari, but my stratagem is telling me to run Servitors.
Hmm.
And
It does detract. I do have to agree.
yeah, I think overall it's just it's interesting, but I think it's pretty questionable, especially with how good Lucius is. I don't think it's bad though. I think you could run it and see it being used, but it's definitely situational depending on what the matchup is.
I think I do agree. Yeah, definitely.
Okay. All right. Then we have Graya. Um Graya is how do I say it? Graya is definitely the Forge world that is struggling the most. That's how we'll say it. um their dogma is basically you don't take morale, and on a 5-up on a mortal
No,
wound, you
you
basically.
don't take combat attrition. You do take morale.
Oh, you do take morale? Oh, so
Yeah,
you can
so
like have
it's
one guy
ignore
run.
combat attrition and a
Yeah.
5-up feel no pain against mortal wounds. It's useful, but it's not super standout. We went over Mars, Lucius, and Agrippina. Agrippina, okay. Anyways, and
Yeah.
we were like, yeah, Agrippina's their dogma is meh. It's very decent, but it's meh. Compared to Lucius and Mars, and then you're going to Graya, it's like this is even more meh. It's like belongs in the Necron's Codex. Sorry, Necron players.
Rip Necrons. However, I know there's been some discussion around this dogma with the psychic armies coming out, and I gotta say, the first part of the dogma feels really bad to me, especially because you're potentially getting bonus leadership from things like data tethers.
You
So
also have the 1 CP auto pass for all units within 6 of an objective.
yeah, it's just very
Yeah.
questionable. The second part of the dogma could see like potential play if psychic armies were to get out of control, and I believe you can still run mixed Forge World. So if you were really really afraid of psychic armies, this is something you could do. I just don't know if it's ever worth doing.
Yeah,
It's
I mean, I feel like that's another part of for example, the Sisters Codex. I'm really big fan of it, especially the anti-psyker part because I hate witches.
Mhm.
But I say that, and I also play Tyranids and Grey Knights. But anyways, I feel like it's this is like a part of the codex where it's like power hasn't really unlocked yet, and we have to see the dominance of Eldari, Inari, Grey Knights, Tyranids, and demons and Thousand Sons. So
yeah,
the psychic
I think
armies we have to watch out for.
Yeah, I think with Graya, it's going to be a matter of if there's going to be psychic editions that are good later on in the edition, but for now, it's
Mhm.
definitely one of the ones that is looking like it's going to be struggling for a while. Anyways, let's get on to the Warlord trait, Mantra of Discipline. In your opponent's
I
charge phase,
actually
it's
really like this.
I don't hate this. I think this is one of the better things about Graya. In your opponent's charge phase, it starts with Heroic Intervention step. You can select one friendly Graya core, and they within 9 inches, and that can heroic intervene 6 inches horizontally and 5 inches vertically, as if it were a character. And this model can heroic intervention 6. Oh, in that unit makes a heroic intervention. It can move up to 6. Wait,
Mhm.
am I understanding this right, Justin? Is this like a 12-inch heroic intervention, or am I not understanding?
No. So basically,
Okay.
normally you can only do within 3, but now it allows you to heroically intervene within 6 inches horizontally and 5 inches vertically, and it's as if it was a character. And each time it moves, it can move up to 6. So if you're only eligible to move within 6, but you don't have the second part of the Warlord trait, you can only move up until like you can only move up 3 inches.
Oh, okay. Got you,
Yeah,
got you.
yeah.
So it's basically a cap to how much it can move. That makes sense. I thought for a second that this was saying, oh, you can heroic 6 and then move 6. That seemed, woo!
If you could
That's,
do that, maybe a Griot patrol in your army.
yeah, I could see you doing that, but assuming that this is intending for a 6 move maximum, it's not great. It's nice to have. And if you're running like Rust Stalkers, heroicing 6 inches can be a big deal. Having, for example, if you run a marshal out in front of your Rust Stalkers, you would have the Rust Stalkers intervene for the marshal. You lose what, like 45 points, and the Rust Stalkers kill the troop, and you trade up. It's nice.
It's
Um,
not bad, I
it's not
think.
bad. I think
Yeah.
it's situational is what it is to be true, and you're also like sacrificing a character every time you do it, but when it comes up, it's nice.
hmm
All
The
right, let's
relic.
look at. Oh, what were you gonna say, Justin?
Oh no, just the relic. Okay,
Yeah,
I'm gonna
relic.
go over
Okay,
it. The cerebral technomiter might.
I think
I honestly thought it said might, as in
I thought it said might
bugs.
too. I think it's Mitre. Mitre.
Betray. I
I'll
don't
look it
know.
up later.
Admech with our weird names. Come on. But basically, it's add 3 inches to the range of the bearer's aura abilities to a maximum of 9, and add 3 inches to your command phase abilities, which is like, seriously, it's really not that good. It's so bad on the Skitarii Warlord traits because, it's 9 inches, or like a lot of the buffs in the Codex are 9 inches in the first place. The Manipulous Galvanic Field, which is pretty much like the most important one for like at least tech priests, that's like already 9 inches. So it's pretty much just the engine seers +1 to hit, and the Dominuses, whatever they have. And I guess adding 3 inches to your reroll ones, are you really gonna spend 1 CP for that? Like, because you have Exemplar's Eternity, and I don't think most armies run a Dominus. I'm not a big fan of them. I think you just get double Manipulus or double Martial Manipulus.
Yeah,
Because like each army needs a Martial and a Manipulus, I feel like. Because Skitarii are just
yeah.
way too good right now.
I
But
think
yeah.
if this would have potential if you could like if this was like an aura or something, and you could like within 6 inches you add 3 to all of the aura ranges on your thing, and there's no max. But as it stands, it's just very questionable, and the 9 inch maximum makes it only affect very specific units. And at that point, I think I would just rather run a relic that's less situational. Like,
Yeah,
you have
absolutely.
so
I
many
feel
good
like it's just a
relics,
waste
and
of relic slot.
yeah, like you have so many better relics. The martial relic is great. You have some good tech priest relics. You have the fight last relic. Like, I never see why you would want to take this over those.
Mhm. The
Anyways,
stratagem Steel Mind Iron Logic. It's a really good stratagem. It's a thing in Adeptus Sororitas. Iron Hands have it. Black Templars, I think, have it too.
yeah, Black Templars
When an
do.
enemy psyker attempts to manifest a psychic power with an 18, roll a d6 on a 4-up that psychic power is denied. If your opponent's like, haha, I'm gonna warp time this unit, boom, you can't do that anymore. Or it's like, if they're Eldari craft rolls and they want to, like quicken or whatever it's like called. But like, like some psychic powers are the crux to your opponent's like game plan, and you can just deny them outright. Like, I think that's
Yeah,
really powerful. Again, it's a 4-up. It's literally a coin flip. I don't like betting on things being a coin flip, but it's a really nice thing to have there. And I feel like if, like as we just said, if psychic armies become more prevalent, we kind of have to, like, we might have to rethink, Graia's place in the meta.
Yeah, I think it, I think even like now, something you could probably reasonably justify is a Graia patrol with just so you can use Steel Mind Iron Logic if Psychers get really good. It's a
Hmm.
nice tool to have. Anyways, let's
Absolutely.
talk about Styges. All right, Shroud
Isn't this
Protocols.
your favorite Forge World, Will?
It is my favorite Forge World. Yeah, no, it's my favorite Forge World. I think it's pretty safe to say. I quite
Yeah.
like Styges.
Hmm.
Um, So, Shroud Protocols. If you're 18 away, you count as having dents. If you are a vehicle unit, it's pretty good for boosting vehicle durability. And if you are a non-core vehicle and you're 12 away, you count as having dense cover against the attack. You also
Hmm.
cannot hold steady or set to defend against a model with this ability with this dogma.
Yeah,
Um.
and one cool ability. So first of all, -1 to hit is just really nice to
Oh
have.
yeah.
A lot of things do kind of just ignore cover now. I think like infiltrators in Space Marines, or you have like Mageras, for example.
Hmm.
Yeah, you have a few cases. I don't think it's a lot, so I shouldn't have said a lot. But a few things in the meta do ignore cover just completely, and that ignores dense. So I think it's a slight nerf, especially given the vehicles excluding core. That's like an 18-inch away thing now.
I mean, it's
Um,
it's the best version of this rule we've seen so far, but
oh yeah.
it's still because it's worded cover. I think it's really questionable for me. I think the old one was just better most of the time, and
One thing it is better in is Sikarn Rust Stalkers have Wasteland Stalkers, so that's +1 to
yeah,
save if
you
they're in
can.
cover.
That
So
definitely does help.
mhm.
The
So
issue
they
is you
count
can
as, yeah, they count as being cover.
right,
Um,
but you can always do things like popping Shroud Sol in Mars to give them cover, and overall, it feels very questionable to me. I've said that quite a few
I'm
times.
actually a
But
pretty big fan of Styges, but Shroud Protocols is a like it's a smaller plant, like it's a smaller point behind it. Like
yeah,
so next episode you guys will get to meet Mark Hertel, who's known as one of the like innovators, or at least like best players of the Styges list pre Admech Codex. And
yeah.
something quoting from him directly, it's like, I'd rather survive getting shot at and then shoot back than just shooting better.
Right.
And that's something that's really useful because -1 to hit, like army wide in the shooting phase, pretty much is like, it's so good. But
Yeah, it's definitely really potent, especially against 4-up ballistic skill armies and even some low volume 3-up ballistic skill armies. I think the issue is it's either really good or it doesn't do a lot.
mhm.
Yeah, which is what makes it kind of like iffy for me. I definitely don't think that's the reason why you take Stitches, but we'll get into that later. Let's talk
Oh
about the
yeah,
Warlord Trait. Veiled
the
Hunter.
Warlord Trait. This is the fun part. Veiled Hunter. At the start of the first battle round, you can select up to 2 friendly Styges 8 units wholly within your deployment zone. Remove those units from the battlefield, then set them up anywhere on the battlefield that is wholly within your deployment zone. If the mission uses strategic reserves, any of those units can be placed into strategic reserves without having to spend any additional CP, regardless of how many units are already in strategic reserves. If both players have abilities that redeploy units, roll off, the winner chooses who redeploys their units first. I mean, you've seen the what's it called? Poison Tongue units. The Poison Tongue play in Jukari already. I feel like with large chicken squads or large Skitari squads, if you deploy them very aggressively and that doesn't pay off, you kind of just use Valid Hunter, go back to reserves, and
Yeah, something else you
yeah.
can also do with this is you can use this with clandestine infiltration because it doesn't specify any sort of range. You just select 2 Styges units. Oh wait, this is within your deployment zone. Sorry, my bad. However, point being, the ability to deploy extremely aggressively and then go back on it, especially on maps like Scouring or smaller deployment zone maps, this is fantastic. I think even on normal maps, it's really great because it mitigates going second very to a point where it's very much worth taking. Yeah, so overall, Veiled Hunter is definitely one of the ones where you can take it completely legitimately, and it'll be useful in pretty much every single game you play because it mitigates the if you deploy on the line, it completely mitigates if you go second, which is extremely
Mhm.
powerful. And you want to be in reserves if you go second, anyways. So it's overall very good. And it being a warlord trait means it's very easy to take as well. So you're not losing anything by taking it, and it doesn't really conflict with anything else too badly.
It's very flexible, which is nice.
Yeah, especially
So
because
basically, yeah.
it doesn't specify
Basically,
core either, which makes it just
if you're
wonderful.
going first, you can just move out and try to get lines of sight, or position yourself to be in a better place once knowing your opponent's deployment. So that's that. Going second, you can go into reserves, you can hide behind buildings. It's very flexible.
Yeah, I think something funny you can do with this in casual games is definitely to put stun robots on the line because they're pretty slow, and then get a 3d6 charge. Or if you go second, you just reserve some, deep strike them turn two, and 3d6 charge.
Mhm.
It lets you do quite a few things like that, or even do that with dragoons. It's very good.
Yeah, absolutely. Or you can count it as a 1 CP strategic reserves for 2 units.
That's true.
Um,
That's another way to
just
think about it.
because sometimes you want to be like, I don't know why you would do this in Styges, but I guess it works. If you have a large unit of fist Stalin robots and you have like 20 man Fulbright squad, right? It's like, oh yeah, that's gonna be three CP to reserve both of them, something like that. Instead, you're
I think
paying
it.
1 CP for the
Yeah, I think it.
for the
I think it's
for the
weird
roller
for it.
trade.
Yeah. Yeah, it's quite expensive, and this is a really good discount to that, and it's even more flexible than a normal reserves, so it's pretty good.
Hmm. Absolutely.
Um, Arkham Mechanicum, the Omnissiah's hand. All right. I know Justin doesn't like this take. I think this relic is really bad.
Hey,
um,
I think it's fine. There are just better relics to take, but it's really fun to say the very least.
it is definitely pretty fun. You can do things like like running around with sterilizers with this. Wait, they can take the faction relic, so you can potentially throw down mortal wounds every turn.
No,
But
I don't think they can.
I mean, then
It
you
has to
could
be
put it
a
on like a
character, yeah.
marshal or something. Yeah, like a marshal. Which is some nice extra mortals, but it's definitely nothing to like write home about.
Yeah,
On
I don't
average,
think
you're
so.
dealing like 5 mortal wounds a game, so it's okay. But if you want mortals, go Mars. That's what I'll say.
Hmm.
Um,
Strat clandestine infiltration. God. Use the stratagem during deployment. Select one Styges 8 core infantry unit from your army. When you set up that unit, it can be set up anywhere on the battlefield that's more than 9 away. So, I'm gonna go into this later, but infiltrators are already an amazing unit in the Codex, and any unit can infiltrate. So good.
any core infantry, but that
Well,
also
any
means
core
rush
infantry,
doctors
yeah.
can. Um, I think Okay, so for those of you who know how Clandine Infiltration used to work back in Eighth, or in the previous iteration of the Codex, before this Codex was launched, what it was a 9-inch forward movement instead before the game started. I do think it did get nerfed, but this version isn't much worse by any like meaningful like degree. Being able to forward deploy your Rust Stalkers, your Rangers, potentially your Vanguard, is really good. It's very good. I think. And you can run this things like Rust Stalkers and Electro Priests. I think the issue is that infiltrators are already a thing in the Codex, so if you really need this, you can get it through other ways.
Hmm.
That's been my feeling on it for a while now. I think Styges as a whole is really good. I just think Mars and Lucius outshine it. I think Styges is very close though.
Hmm. Yeah, absolutely.
I could see metas where like Guard is really good, and then Tau doesn't get the ballistic skill change. It gets really good. And this becomes like the go-to always take it Forge World. But for right now, I think it's a little bit on the weaker side. Not to say it's definitely better than the Agrippina right now, but it's still kind of it's missing a couple of pieces to make it really crazy like Lucius is right now, in my opinion.
Yep.
All
Ryza?
right. Right. This one also really got a big uplift in the new codex, especially with things like the Dogma, which is
Yeah,
now
they're
you
just
charge
better
a
blood
heroic.
angels now.
Yeah, it's crazy. You charge a heroic, and you get +1 to wound, and you add 1 to charge rolls for units made with this Dogma. Um, you're hey, I am a 17-point model with 4 attacks with a Court Claw. Yes, I'll take this, please. Like,
Ryza Rusttalkers, oh my god, so great. Infiltrators,
yeah,
even infiltrators, they deliver themselves. You know,
yeah. This is the Forge world where if you want to take like 50 Sicarans, this is how you do it.
so good.
It's
And the Warlord trait too. You know, start of the fight phase, select one friendly Ryza core unit within 6, and then add 1 to the AP characteristic in their melee attacks. You know, it's just like here's my
yeah. You
AP2
send up your
infiltrators or
Rust
my
Stalkers with their
like
razors and claws.
AP4
Yeah,
AP4 Rusttalkers. So great.
yeah. It's very strong. This is it's a very fun Forge world. You know, you got all these melee buffs. It's
Ryza
pretty
is just really good at melee and it's so fun.
yeah.
The
Which is
Relic is
something.
weird though. Like
Yeah, the
their
relic.
entire set of like stuff, like of like stratagems, warlord traits, relics, kind of contradicts each other, but it's really just a warlord trait. To be honest, Ryza, like the warlord trait and the dogma makes up for like the really weird contradictory stratagems and relics.
Yeah, especially with Arkham Mechanicum being a heavy 3, strength 7, AP2 damage to weapon on 6s, you deal 2 mortals, and Plasma being +1 damage at 2 CP. It's definitely I think that's been a trend with a lot of these Forge worlds is they have like half of the rules which are trying to do one thing, and then you have the other half is trying to do another thing. With the
Yeah, yeah,
exception of like Lucius and Mars. Um which I think is well, and I guess Graya, but Graya is also kind of bad. So
yeah.
um it's very I think it's kind of indicative of like the power of a Forge world if their all of their abilities are really cohesive.
I
So
think
Ryza
Styges is also really cohesive too. It's just the relic that's kind of bad.
I think the dogma conflicts with everything else, but I don't think it's like a bad dogma necessarily. It's just the issue is the rest of the Forge world wants to be up close, but it also makes it makes your opponent want to fall back and then like shoot your melee units, which can be either really good or just kind of meh.
Mhm.
Um, which is why I think Sigis is situational. Ryza is even more situational than Sigis is, but this is
They slap.
probably
They
Ryza
slap.
does slap. It's definitely one of the more fun casual versions. If you want to run like a casual Admech list, Ryza is a great way to do that.
Hmm.
Because it doesn't
50
feel oppressive.
Sicarans.
Yeah, you can
Oh
run
my
50
god.
Sakaran and some Castellan robots. It's a good time. It's a fun portal to play.
Yeah, it's like, let me wound everything in the game on twos.
For sure. It's definitely not the competitive pick, at least for right now. But I mean, it could in the future. But for right now, I do think Rise is very fun. And it's definitely one of the better picks for casual play. Yeah. Anyways.
Okay, Metallica. That's the last of the named Forge Worlds. Also, my
Yeah.
personal favorite. I don't know. I'm a big Mars fan. I'm also a big Lucius fan. I've been running these three like Forge Worlds throughout 8th edition, 9th edition. Metallica is certainly really cool, especially their radiation stuff and their color scheme too.
Yeah.
Pretty amazing.
It's very fluffy. It's they have a lot of rules.
Also, they have
Especially with
a
supplement.
supplement, and the supplement is
Yeah.
amazing. I think it was better in the old codex, in my opinion, um,
I think
because the new
Radiant
codex
Weapon
promotes a different type of playstyle. But I think Metallica is really good right now.
I think it's really good as well. I think something that was the like biggest question mark for Metallica for me was how they made radiant weapons auto wound, but they also made them reduce toughness. That didn't make any sense to me. Especially with things like blowing out your rad saturation aura. That was
Mhm.
very strange. But I think you can get more into that as you can cover like the dogmas, since you play Metallica quite a bit more than I do.
Yeah. Anyways, Dogma, Relentless March. So slight change from the old Codex, but you do not suffer the penalties to advance and shoot assault weapons. You do not suffer the heavy weapon penalty. And if you're in an engagement range with an enemy unit, they count as being below half strength. So, if they take morale, it's, they run on ones and twos in attrition. But honestly, it's not that good. Like morale, I'm not a big fan of morale and attrition abilities. Like it's this gimmick, and the morale phase really isn't that big of a deal in 40k.
Yeah, ninth edition morale isn't that big of a deal. I think it's nice that your like 90-man Skitarii blob isn't getting. Well, sorry, this is an enemy unit. The problem for me with this is its engagement range. So unless you're very specifically fighting things like Oryx or Guard, this it's not great. If you're running into 20-man to 30-man hordes, this is fantastic. You might even kill off like if you kill a couple of models off an Orc Boy horde, you're probably going to kill like 15 you're going to kill what like 30 guys. You're going to kill like 6 of them? If my
Yeah,
math is
the
right.
problem is surviving the Orc Boy horde as Skitarii or
Yeah.
whatever.
Yeah, and it's also like you have a lot of options just to outright kill people, so it's
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 just very
interesting.
situational.
Yeah. Anyways, you want to talk about the Warlord trait, Justin?
Yeah, sure. Tribute of Empathic Veneration. So, end of your movement phase, select one enemy unit within 12 of your Warlord. Each time a model in that unit makes an attack, subtract 1 from the attack's hit roll. It's really good. It's one of the better Warlord traits. Really nothing to be said about it. There's no nuance. Just select the unit that have -1 to hit. A few psychic powers like that, namely I feel like in White Scars that might only be enranged. But it's there, it exists. It's meh. Like it's good, but like it's like not the best World Retreat. It's not too high up
Yeah.
in my priority.
And don't you guys have a
Firepoint and
stratagem
programmed
that
I always take.
uh-huh.
And then this is just like, do I take this on the tech priest?
Yeah, don't you guys also have a stratagem that does something similar to this?
Um, I don't think so.
Okay.
I'll go over our stratagems later. But
Yeah.
anyways, our relic, it's the most like it's the most boss relic like in the codex, and in my opinion in the game. But it's like absolutely useless. Again, it's a melee relic, but it's a Metallica model only, and it's a strength times 3, AP 3, damage 4 weapon. So you're like, oh
And
yeah,
yes.
this could be good if you're on a tech priest. No, you can only make one attack with it. But
I
each time
mean,
the attack is made with this weapon, add 1 to the attack's hit roll. It's like,
I do
very, very
believe
meh.
this is the only strength times 3 item in the game, but
No,
it's
there's actually a
also.
few.
Oh really?
Tor Garadon in Imperial Fist, I believe, has a strength times 3. And I think Salamanders have a strength times 3 Thunderhammer or something like that.
Well, I
Um,
stand corrected. It's
yeah,
definitely a very funny relic, and dealing 4 damage if it goes off is great, but it's very hard to make work. On top of that, it's only
yeah.
one attack. So
I have a friend who's said, they will set fire to their army on the Las Vegas Strip. Like if LVO 2021 was won by Tau, and the player scores a killing blow on the Warlord with the Honor Gauntlet. So like I feel like it's the same energy.
yeah, that definitely
It's the
has
same energy.
that exact same energy. It's very it's I say things are questionable. This is beyond questionable. This is meme tier.
This is just
It's
a
a good
meme
meme.
relic. Like if you want to make a statement, you take the relic just to flex on your.
Yes, let me take my metal hand to slap you with.
It's just a statement. You bitch slap someone with your fucking metal hand. Uh,
Alrighty, let's talk about deafening assault. This is a pretty great stratagem. You pick a unit within 12. When a Metallica unit from your army is selected to shoot, select one unit within 12. until the start of your next turn. You can have the movement
Excluding
characteristic
vehicle
available
units.
for
Do
him.
remind do
Excluding
remember
vehicles.
that.
Excluding vehicles. And that unit can not fire Overwatch or set to defend. I think Deafening Assault is really great.
Oh
Because you can
yeah, it's
split fire
amazing.
with it. You can split fire with it. You're not forced to kill the unit you shoot. So unlike a lot of the other things that can be pretty contradictory with, like morale penalties that Metallica does have, this is fantastic by comparison because, you have one Vanguard shoot another squad, they get half movement, and then you're firing at, something else and you're killing it most likely. Also
Yeah, yeah,
not
yeah.
being able to fire Overwatch
Or
is a
if you're a
defense.
plane, right, you can go over someone, seismic bomb them, and then shoot at them. Deafening assault, boom. You
Yeah,
have the movement of 2 units, and this one does not have the restriction against fly keyword stuff. So against a lot of like really fast units that want to get to you, boom. Suddenly they're having their movement, and that's like a lot, especially on like 12, 14-inch move units.
yeah, for sure. Something that's really good is I know we've talked about this before, but you can run a plane with this, and you can spend 2 CP to give 2 units half movement, which can just cripple some armies. It's
Hmm.
situationally really fantastic. I think
Yeah.
Metallica is just overall a pretty good Forge World and has good options, especially with the supplement stuff. Yeah.
Hmm. So,
All right.
distant worlds. These
Distant
are
World.
the custom forge worlds. We're just gonna gloss over them really quick. Radsat. The primary. So you have a primary and a secondary forge world dogma. The primary you always have to take, and secondary you have like choice between three, and you get to choose.
Mhm.
Radsat. So if each time a range attack
And this is a
is
primary.
attacks a core unit with this dogma, if the attacker is more than 12 away, subtract one from the strength characteristic of the attack. And you have the three secondaries, which is extreme rad sat. So this changes the rad saturation ability of Sulfur Hounds and Vanguard. So it's now within 3 inches, excluding vehicles. Subtract one from strength and toughness. The other one is scarifying weaponry. Add one to strength and armor pen of radium weapons, which is really cool. I feel like that's something we can explore. Strength 4 AP1 radium carbines.
Oh yeah.
Then there's another one, which is Machine God's Chosen. This is really meh. Combat. Each time a combat attrition test is taken for this unit, ignore any or all modifiers. It's like, why? Anyways,
Yeah, it's not
you want to
great.
go over the expansionist ones?
Yeah, I have actually messed around with Expansionist a bit. So your primary is accentuated accelerated accutators. All right, that's the word of
Actuators.
it. Actuators. Oh, that makes sense now. I was like accutators. What? Actu. Advocate, am I right? Each time a unit fights, if it made a charge move, was charged, or performed heroic intervention, you get AP1. Pretty decent. Not as good as Ryza, but it's pretty decent. Well, getting AP1 is situationally better, but you're very low strength in Admech, so you're better off with Ryza. So you're probably not taking this for the primary. The secondary is a 9-inch forward deploy for units that already had a 3-inch forward deploy, and 3-inch forward deploy with units that didn't have any forward deploys.
Yeah,
So
so
you're
it's
potentially,
not a forward deploy. It's a pregame move
yeah,
for all
sorry,
Skatari core. Yeah,
yeah,
still
it's
has the normal thing of not allowed to move within 9.
yeah. I think if you're gonna take expansionist, this is why you take it. This is a really good ability. I don't think we're
Mhm.
gonna see List make use of this because of how good Lucius is at the moment, and
Yeah,
you can just
and
take Stygies,
will
but this
just
is
one thing. You
really
did
good.
say 9. It's just an additional 3, so it's just
Oh,
6 inch.
it's an additional
Yeah,
3 if you're not Rangers. Rangers
for
get 9.
Rangers. No,
Yeah.
Rangers get additional 3, right? Because can
No.
make a normal move up to 3. This is in
Oh,
addition to any
so
other
you're
abilities.
moving 6, right? Because you're getting 3 plus
Yeah.
3. Yeah.
3 plus 3 is 6, not 9.
Yeah. I do think this is why. Do think this is why you take expansionist Forge World. I just it's not very strong still, however, especially with things like Stygies and Lucius running around. Your other secondaries are Acquisitive Reach, which is add 6 inches to rifles and carbines. Not super great. You can just run Lucius instead. And Rugged Explorers, you don't suffer a heavy movement penalty for firing and shooting. And vehicle models that have assault weapons do not incur assault weapon penalty. Overall,
Meh.
expansionist is you're probably taking a different forge roll because different forge rolls will do this better.
The pregame
It's
move
a very
one is
powerful forge roll.
interesting.
It's interesting, but it feels very like casual orientated. Like running this in a casual
Mhm.
game won't be too oppressive.
And then there's
Um,
Data Horde. I think it's still one of the problem ones. I don't know. Data Horde got used to be really strong. With the six planes list, so their primary is still magna bonded alloys. So each time a vehicle would lose a wound, roll 1d6 on on a sixth. The wound is not lost. Six up field pain against your vehicles is pretty much more wounds. Super useful. Secondaries, Omnitrack Impellers add two to the move characteristics of Cataphan Servitors and Onager Dunecrawlers models with Dogma. It's like, might be useful if it was actually on Skitarii, to be honest, but Cataphons and Onagers, like, Onagers still have a place, but
I think
Cataphons really meh.
I think if this was like Constellan robots or like Iron Striders and Dragoons, this would be like amazing. I think the fact that it doesn't go on melee models for the most part is pretty crippling. I think getting like 8-inch move Castellan Cataphan servitors is great, but with how Cataphan servitors are in the Codex, it's a little too questionable for me. I think 10-inch onagers makes them actually decently mobile, but it's the issue is you have better synergies and combos. I think it's fine for a casual game. That's what I'll say.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Secondary, Auto Savant Spirits. That's another one. So each time a vehicle, at the start of your command phase, each vehicle army gains one lost wound. Secondary, there's a second part. If they have damage brackets, they count as having double the number of wounds.
Yeah, I mean,
It's pretty good.
it's kind of okay because especially a lot of lists are running Iron Striders and non-bracketing vehicles. I don't think you end up running this most of the time.
Hmm. I mean, it's okay. I
Yeah,
think the real deal is the last one, Servo Focus Auguries. Um, Each time a model with this dogma makes an attack with a cognizant weapon, if you're within half range, you can reroll the hit roll.
yeah,
I think six plane lists are moving to Mars now, but I feel like it still has a place in six planes lists.
yeah.
Used to
I
run
also
against
think,
a lot of six planes, like 8 chickens, 12 chickens, something like that.
yeah. I think it's chicken and very chicken and heavy, and definitely very plain heavy lists. Your server focus is still good, but it's it has competition, and that competition is fairly strict. Yeah,
Yep.
reignited fortress.
Reignited.
I've actually played a couple of these. Mind if I go over them? They're
Sure.
interesting.
Yeah. Go for it. Go for it.
Yeah, so your primary is it's permutation protocols. Every time you make a wound roll of 6 on a ranged attack, you get AP1. Pretty okay. It gives you a little extra damage here and there. It's nothing to write home about,
I
really.
think it's pretty good with, large quantities of shooting, which Admech has with Qatari.
Yeah, for sure. I think it's just kind of okay. I think it gets. I think once you add it with the secondaries in the context of those, things get kind of like crazy. I think people have been underestimating this one, but I'll keep going into it. So your next secondary is data bleed generators. Um, each time an enemy model makes a melee attack against a unit with this dogma, um, made a charge move, charge, or performed a heroic intervention, subtract one from the attack's hit roll, and then you have purified data sphere, which is your next one, which adds 3 inches to aura abilities, excluding rad saturated to maximum of 9. And then you have engineered nanophages, which is on models with characteristics of 3 plus. If you make a melee attack, you get an extra AP.
Yep.
Um, I think I think purified data sphere and data bleed are pretty bad, but I think engineered nanophages is actually like something you could like legitimately consider. I think
Yep.
like getting an extra AP in both phases is something that does come up quite nicely. I don't know if this makes it an
Yeah,
auto
the
pick,
thing
but it's
is
definitely
just
not bad.
melee, and I'd honestly just take Ryza then. You know.
I think if you want to run a more like hybrid list, it's not bad. I think you might just run Radsat instead because getting an extra AP and extra strength on radium weapons makes them galvanic rifles essentially, and having 3 shot strength 4 AP 1 damage 1 weapons that auto wound on sixes is pretty insane. Um,
Mhm.
I do think this has potential. I just I'm just curious to see what people make use of it out of. And
Yeah,
then
absolutely. And
And
there's
then
also slave systems. It's literally just choose a named Forge World. You get to count as like a successor of them, pretty much, and you just don't get the relic. I believe you
yeah,
don't get the Arcana Mechanicum.
yeah. The
That's
nice
it.
thing about this is in GW Raw, sometimes your models do have to be the same paint scheme, and some tournaments they want you to be the same paint scheme. Slave
I
systems
think
lets you
that's
bypass
literally
that
just
completely.
Warhammer World.
It might just be Warhammer World, but I know there are some places that have that restriction. Slave System
Mhm.
says you can completely bypass that, which is it's a nice stealth buff. Saves you time on painting. Um, but yeah, I don't think the Marine Codex even has something like this. So hey, if
No,
you
no, you
wanted
have successor
to,
chapters.
right, but you have to like, and according to like,
Inheritors of the Primarch.
oh, there's Inheritors. Wait, no, Inheritors of Primarch can't take like named characters though. This can.
Yeah, but we don't have named characters except for
I mean,
Call, who can be taken everywhere.
that's true. Um,
And
but
we
hey,
don't
if you
even
want.
know if we can run Datalosis.
I mean, currently we can.
I mean,
Um,
he didn't have points at the MFM, so I don't know if GW just forgot about him, or it's like, yeah, we can still run.
the MFM was confusing. Let's just say that. We can go over that
Yeah.
another time.
Anyways, this concludes our first part of our three-part review. So this is part 1 out of 3 of episode 1 of our Codex review of the Codex Adeptus Mechanicus. Thank you so much for watching, and look out for the next one. Bye!